In 1849, as a member of the Free Soil Party, Chase served as United States Senator. He was elected the first Republican governor of Ohio in 1855 and again in 1857 before returning to the Senate, this time as a Republican in 1861. When Lincoln appointed him Secretary of the Treasury, Chase vacated his Senate seat after serving only 2 days. Due to differences with Lincoln, he resigned from the cabinet in July of 1864. However, when Chief Justice Taney, the author of Dred Scott, died in October of that same year, Lincoln nominated Chase as his replacement. It was Chase who administered the presidential oath to Andrew Johnson following Lincoln's assassination in 1865, and as Chief Justice, it was Chase who presided over Johnson's impeachment trial in the Senate in 1868. As Chief Justice, Chase did not forget the constitutional theories he had advocated for 30 years. In response to Southern denials of the economic and personal liberties of freed blacks, as well as of white Republicans and Unionists in the South. In the 39th Congress, Republicans in the 39th Congress proposed and enacted the 14th Amendment. One key provision of that amendment was the Privileges or Immunities Clause, which read, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States." Language that was drafted by Ohio Republican Congressman John Bingham. In 1873, in the slaughterhouse cases, the Supreme Court gutted this clause by limiting it only to those rights that it said stem from the federal government itself, such as the protection of life, liberty, and property while traveling on the high seas, or the right to access an American embassy abroad, as though these were the privileges or immunities that Republicans in Congress amended the Constitution to protect. In his opinion for the majority, Justice Miller claimed that the basic economic liberties of property and contract were to be protected solely by state governments, a conclusion that was hotly contested by 3 separate dissenting opinions. Because he wrote no opinion in this case, the vote of the 4th dissenter, Chief Justice Salmon P. Chase, who was critically ill at the time, is generally overlooked. That same day as the slaughterhouse case was announced, the Supreme Court also announced its decision in Bradwell versus Illinois, a lawsuit in which Myra Bradwell contested the state's refusal to allow her to practice law because she was female. Consistent with his approach in the slaughterhouse cases, Justice Miller denied that the economic right to pursue a lawful occupation as a lawyer was among the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. But then he was joined in this by Justices Bradley, Swain, and Field, 3 of the slaughterhouse dissenters, who said that this discrimination against women was justified and therefore was within the police power of the states. Only the frail and aging Salmon P. Chase, in the words of the United States Supreme Court reporter, quote, dissented from the judgment of the court and from all the opinions, unquote. 3 weeks later, he died. So why don't we all know the story of Salmon P. Chase? Why don't we know the story of the constitutional abolitionists and their role in establishing the Republican Party? Why don't we know the names of the Republicans in the 39th Congress, like John Bingham, who wrote and approved the 14th Amendment? Why don't we know that the Justice Department of Republican President Ulysses S. Grant obtained convictions of Southern terrorists from Southern juries, only to have the Republican-enacted Civil Rights Act, under which they were prosecuted, invalidated by the Supreme Court? Why don't we know that the Grant administration successfully wiped out the Ku Klux Klan until it was revived as a new organization in the 20th century? In sum, why don't we know about the libertarian origins of the Republican Party? Well, let me offer a hypothesis which I can't prove, but it's just my best guess. The early 20th century saw the rise of a revisionist Southern historiography that retold the 19th century battles for freedom. Abolitionists became crazed extremists. Congressional Republicans became dangerous radicals. Reconstruction became a period of northern oppression of the South and black fecklessness at self-governance. And President Grant became one of the worst presidents, as usually polled by historians, in American history. This narrative certainly fit the needs of the Democratic Party, the same Democratic Party that under Woodrow Wilson formally segregated the federal government. And later on, it also fit the agenda of the American left, who were eager to negate any novel reading of American history. Thus did Northern progressive Democrats and leftist academics make common cause with Southern segregationist Democrats in snuffing out the memory of the libertarian origins and accomplishments of the Republican Party, even among Republicans. Today, many so-called judicial conservatives, who now tend to be Republicans, still hew to this revisionist conception, for example, of the 14th Amendment. Just last term, all the conservative justices, except Justice Thomas, reaffirmed the slaughterhouse cases for fear that a revival of the Privileges or Immunities Clause might protect more liberty than they might like. Now, to be clear, I am not claiming that every tenet of the early Republican Party was libertarian by today's standards. In fact, what they did is when they decided they couldn't be a single-issue party to win elections. They couldn't be solely an anti-slavery party to win, so they had to broaden out and add other planks to their platform that would win elections, and it did win elections. What I am claiming is that the Republican Party of Salmon P. Chase was founded first and foremost to fight for liberty against the greatest tyranny then extant in the United States. And these constitutional abolitionists were harshly criticized by other libertarian abolitionists in their political activism. Yet, defying all odds, they prevailed. After they succeeded in their fight to abolish slavery, these Republicans then continued their struggle against Southern terrorism to establish a regime of racial equality, until the American people grew tired of that fight and let the South establish a new system of racial subordination that lasted another 100 years. Today, far more people know the term carpetbaggers than know the name John Bingham or Salmon P. Chase. I urge the Republican Liberty Caucus to rediscover and celebrate the libertarian origins of the Republican Party. It is a history that Republicans can be proud of. Thank you.